Good morning, everyone. I was welcomed into this parish as a seventh grader. I was new to Christ Holy Trinity, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing here yet. Almost immediately, my family was taken under the wings of Kareth, John Branson, and Sue. It was like we had been here for years. That's when I realized that Christ Holy Trinity is a unique church. It's a place where people will rally around you when something happens. There are people who are always willing to help in whatever way they can. A month and a half ago, I lost my grandfather. It wasn't a shock, but still, it was really painful. I didn't really look to the church for help, guidance, or support, but that is exactly what I received. My family and I received more calls that week than the number of days I went to school. Heartfelt texts, emails, and phone calls, some from people that I knew and loved, and others from people who we didn't know, but were still praying for my family and I. This is when I really learned how all-encompassing God and his love is. Today's reading is about how God is like a shepherd to us, and we are his sheep. He guides us to his love and accepts us no matter what. I have experienced God's love in the past. We all have, and we all will continue to do so. But I realized that in my 17 years here on this earth, I never was consciously grateful for the gift of his love. But that's one of the great things about this church and God. You don't need to be looking for anything or anyone, and God will still find a way to make you feel loved. I struggled with my faith, especially when I was younger. During the confirmation process, I felt like I needed to understand where I was with God. I needed to understand and believe in him because I was being accepted into this church as a confirmed member, and that was really serious business. But I was a suspicious 13-year-old. Hearing that someone was out there and always watching me was a little bit sketchy and a little far-fetched, and I was a little uncomfortable with that. I didn't know how to react when I was told, he's there, but you can't see him. What do you mean I can't see him? Why can't he be a she? Where is he? The response was always the same. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This, I believe, is also a metaphor for God's love. You can't always see it, but you're comforted by the fact that you know it's there. I don't have to be in church or thinking of God to know that he is watching over me. I know that I struggled with my faith until my grandfather got sick. I couldn't imagine a world without him, and I never experienced someone close to me dying. And even at 17, I couldn't understand. This was really the pivotal moment where I decided that my grandfather was going to heaven. My grandfather, or as my sister and I called him, Gaga, was a devout Catholic and treated everyone like a friend, and I found comfort in the fact that death for him wasn't the end. My grandparents lived in New Jersey before moving to Fairfield, which meant that my sister and I didn't see them very often. Instead, we had weekly phone calls, and here was the routine. My grandmother would always chat first, and then she'd call my grandfather in. He pretended that he didn't know me, and he'd say, "Hello, who's this?" I would reply with a very indignant, "Caroline," and he'd say, "Caroline who?" And every time I reply, "Caroline Elizabeth Pirelli Gray." And every time he'd reply, "Hey, Carolina." We talked about mundane things, what I had done that week, who I had a play date with, and then he asked the important question, if I had gone to church or not. If the answer was no, he'd go, "I'll pray for you." And he prayed for me often because I had sports and I didn't want to wake up early in the morning sometimes. But it's really interesting, though, because even though both my parents were frequent churchgoers, I really saw my grandfather as the ultimate Christian. He embodied the persona of the shepherd as he supported his friends and family during their times of need, without ever asking for anything in return. He was a giver of his time, his smile, and his love. And because of that, God gave him the same in return. He was so thrilled to find out that I would be going to a Jesuit school, just as my sister was doing. As of now, 4 out of his 8 grandchildren will be in or have graduated from Jesuit universities. My grandfather really made it his mission to instill in us the idea that faith is an important part of life. He was part of the reason that 5 out of the 6 schools I applied to were Jesuit. But the other thing that helped me choose Jesuit colleges over other schools was a community that I found here. Besides my family, I've never been a part of a group of people so loving and warm, and I never expected to be so attached to this church and the people in it. The week of my grandfather's funeral, I got a call from Kate Nelson, my youth group leader and a good friend. My mom, of course, had told Kate that I was struggling and I wasn't going to school. Kate called immediately and invited my sister out to rock climbing with the youth group. That day, I turned to my sister Madeline, who had flown in from Cincinnati for the funeral, and I asked her when her flight was. She said 8, and I said, great, we're going rock climbing with 9-year-olds. And honestly, we had a really great time. Kate knew that we needed to get out of the house and have a little fun without having to think about anything going on. And this memory, among many others, has really shown me what it is like to be accepted and loved in this church, and I'm so honored to be able to speak with you today, to talk about my grandfather, my faith, and to show my gratitude to this congregation who has shown me what God's love means. 2 months ago, after my grandfather's death, my cup was bordering on empty, and the people of this church refilled it bit by bit. I now understand that it is our responsibility as Christians and members of this wonderful church to look to fill the empty cups of people who are struggling, either with their faith or circumstances. You all did that for my family and I, and now with our cups overflowing once more, we are able and willing to do the same for everyone here. As it says in Psalm 23, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. I know that I will always miss my grandfather, but I am thankful for the time that we had together and the lessons that he taught me. And I also know that no matter what happens in my life, and as I head off to Gonzaga next year for college, I will always have God, my faith, and the people of this church with me. Thank you.